Okay, good afternoon. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to the 18th Biennial Ralph H. and Ruth F. Gross Endowed Lecture. I also want to thank everyone for attending, whether you're here with us physically in the auditorium or via Zoom. I think at last count we had about 30 people with us on Zoom. Before we proceed, on behalf of the University of Miami, I want to acknowledge the ancestral and traditional tribes of the Seminole territories of the Seminole Tribe of Florida, the Council of the original Miccosukee Seminole Nation, original peoples, and the Miccosukee Tribe of Indians of Florida, who are the original owners and custodians of the land upon which we stand and learn. Just a small bit of housekeeping. Unless Dr. Seixas says, we are going to take questions and answers at the completion of today's lecture, but he'll make that decision. And if you are in Zoom at the completion and you do have a question, put those in chat. Now, it is my honor to introduce Dr. Lawrence Gardner. Dr. Gardner attended college at MIT, graduated magna cum laude from Harvard Medical School, completed his residency at Massachusetts General Hospital, and trained in nephrology at the University of Pennsylvania Hospital, where he also served as chief resident. Dr. Gardner joined UM in 1974 and has served in several prestigious positions, including chairman of medicine and the executive director of education and health policy. Dr. Gardner also served as interim dean for the School of Medicine in 2016 and 17. Dr. Gardner was instrumental in the accreditation of all postdoctoral training programs at Jackson Memorial Hospital and in advocating for the new medical education building at the Miller School of Medicine. He also created new training programs at JFK Hospital in Palm Beach, where they had never had allopathic training before. I like to joke to Dr. Gardner that of all of his accomplishments, the most impressive maybe was that he was this distinguished speaker for the 13th Biennial Gross Lecture back in 2015, where he delivered his speech on the Affordable Care Act, implications for the future of healthcare in the U.S., linked with education and medical knowledge. Dr. Gardner will now introduce today's distinguished lecture. Dr. Gardner.
To summarize Kim's introduction of me, it would appear that I cannot hold a job. So it's my pleasure to say hello today and to introduce you to the Ralph H, and Ruth F. Gross Memorial Lecture. This is a biennial event established by an endowment from the family with a $1 million gift to the Calder Library. And it stands in distinction as just a special niche lecture that we're able to give every 2 years on a variety of general topics not constrained necessarily by school or department or even the environment, but talking about things that are important to all of us where we can learn. And today's example is going to be a good one. The daughters of the Gross family ordinarily are here and traditionally run into traffic on I-95, in my experience, yearly, as if it's a surprise. They must be optimistic people. They jump in the car assuming they'll just be here, and then they run into our traffic. So they're late, but as soon as they get here, we'll usher them to the front, but we won't stop the program. We'll keep it going because Dean Ekman and Chief Librarian Loper have given me no opportunity but to stay on time. So you should know that prior to World War II, the Grosses established a poultry farm in Broward County and had a bad first year where most of their chicks died, 92 out of 100. Only 8 survived. Mr. Gross, instead of dwelling on the reasons for this catastrophe, came to the Calder Library and studied and looked up causes of death of chickens and what could be prevented. After some time, he began to experiment with supplements to improve immunologic and infectious defenses for chickens, was successful enough to patent those supplements, and eventually sold this invention. In a way, those dollars helped begin to support the gift that we're benefiting from today. So talk about an interesting cycle of learning in the Calder Library, generating revenue to allow education here. I have the enormous challenge of introducing Dr. Azizi Seixas. Let's see. Yes, I said to Kim it would be impossible for me to deal with all of his titles and recognition, so please put them on a PowerPoint slide. And so what she did was put about 3 of them on here and still leave me with this gigantic list. When Dr. Seixas first came here, he just astounded me with his introductory talk about both his vision, his plans, and his "we will get these things done." And I need to tell you that I told him I'm expecting today to hear what's happened in the last, has it been 3 years? Is that about right? Yep. Okay. So I would mention that he's the interim inaugural chair of the Department of Informatics and Health Data Sciences, a department we didn't have that we need, and that we need more than ever today, as AI and big data occupy virtually every line of the newspapers we read. He's the founding director of the Media and Innovation Laboratory, the associate director of the Translational Sleep and Circadian Rhythm, which I find interesting given all of this and is not meant to be a suggestion about the results of his talk. He's the director of Population Health Informatics, and he has been recognized with an enormous number of awards for innovation, work, and I think courage in a bunch of areas that have been difficult. He's a principal investigator of 5 significant grants. He has truly been exceedingly productive since he's been here, with an extensive record of publications. His interests include exploring cardiovascular and brain health, something all of us should be interested in, especially as we become more mature, investigating the impact of sleep, developing personalized behavior modifications. I've suggested he be somewhat discreet with regard to me in that regard. Novel centralized clinical trial methodologies, and the like. He's developed a remote monitoring capability. Did I do that by mistake? Sorry. And a reality-based cognitive assessment program. He has a great deal of things to tell us, and I won't delay his talk anymore. I, like you, look forward to his talk. Dr. Seixas.
A pleasant good evening. And how do I live up to that, Dr. Gardner? I think I shared this with him that it's really huge shoes to fit, Dr. Gardner, since I came here 4 years now. You have been one of the most gracious leaders, and you have been very kind, and kind with your wisdom. And thanks for this opportunity. Kim, thank you for your steadfast leadership. I have marveled at what the library has done and continues to do, and always reflexively, finding import in a fast growing information technology space. And so I commend you and your team, I congratulate you and your team. Dean Ekman, thank you for your leadership throughout the entire university. Thanks for the fantastic opportunity to deliver this year's lectureship. And thanks to my friends and colleagues and work family and friends and my family as well here. Thank you for being here. I am full. I am extremely full. I am extremely full. And I think this is fantastic, actually. I am even more thankful now that the Gross family is here. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause. We recognize that, and just in time. And thank you so much for the Gross family and your endowment and gift and investment in our very august university. Endowments like these help us to really continue the mission of who we are as an institution. And so one of the things that I have been reflecting on for quite some time, and I hope that I don't bore you or put you to sleep, as Dr. Gardner intimated, is I want to take you on a bit of a tour of my own thinking. And I think it may reflect some of the musings that you all have had over the past 3 years, being bombarded with topics and issues like AI and artificial intelligence and technology and big data. But I have a different type of spin. My spin is one where I am not enamored by intellect. I am enamored by someone's heart and someone's soul and someone's mind. So you may have come here expecting to see the biggest and best and most sophisticated gadgets. But my hope is that I will be able to share with you that both need to coexist, that technology and humanity must remain at the center of who we are and how we actually create a future where everyone is equal and that healthcare works for all. And so one of the things that you probably have been reflecting on over the past few years, the last 4 or 5 years, we've been ravished by a global pandemic. Our worlds have been turned upside down, right side up. And oftentimes we've been faced and confronted with some of life's greatest stressors like anxiety and stressors and panic and unease. And one of the things that you have to reflect on is what role does an academic institution play in these times? Yes, you can look to our elected officials and other leaders and tech gurus, but I hope that I'll be able to argue today that there is a place for academia. There is a place for leadership in academia in times like these, that in moments of darkness, this is where universities must stand tall to be the beacon of hope. And let's start with our own university. The motto of the University of Miami is "Great is Truth." Now, most of you probably aren't aware that our motto comes from the book of Ezra. And the book of Ezra is one of the few canonical books in the Bible where it chronicled the journey of the Jewish people from exile back to their homeland. And there are 3 themes that rang out and still continue to ring out that I believe have significant salience and resonance to what we are experiencing today. That in the face of darkness, in the face of exile, in the face of our world being turned upside down, right side up, where we, by a pandemic, or we're questioning what truth is, that truth is relative, that as an academic institution, this is our opportunity to rebuild. This is our opportunity to purify. But more so, this is our opportunity to fortify some very core principles of what makes us human. And so we at the University of Miami, that though we believe that truth is important, but truth is not enough. And it pains me to say that. that truth is not always enough, that truth unbridled needs to be grounded in wisdom. It needs to have this purposeful design, and it needs to be systematically spread throughout the moral fabric and the entire institutional frameworks. That truth is not a choice right now, folks. That everything that we do must be centered around truth. And it's based on those principles that I have arrived at a core mission. That while academic institutions are the engines of innovation, that let us not get distracted by the fact that innovation should just be the pursuit of intellect, but innovation should be grounded in purpose. That anything that we pursue for innovation, whether in medicine or in technology or in engineering, must be grounded with a purpose. And as I like to say, innovation with and for a purpose. That is the real IP, not intellectual property. That's who we are as an academic institution. That's our legacy. That's what the world is calling us to offer. Innovation with and for a purpose. So you may ask, how do you do this? Well, let me lay out the DNA of the vision. Dr. Gardner had said 4 years ago that I'm a big thinker and I have all these different strategies, and some of my team colleagues are here. They know that, I'm always providing strategic plans and executive summaries and the like. And let me just lay this out. And by no means, this is not trying to raise a flag and say we are perfect. But I hope that you'll be able to take away from this message and this keynote that in your own little lives, because we are all own little lives, that you can actually create your own vision for yourselves, for your families, your communities, where you work. And the DNA of any kind of vision is that you must focus on the why. What are your values? What are your beliefs? Is it truth? Is it innovation? But then you also need to focus on the how. How are you going to get there? Are you a shepherd? Are you a leader where you're actually walking behind your flock, ensuring that they have the necessary parameters to go ahead and execute and reach their goal? Are you a Sherpa? Are you that individual in that very treacherous terrain? Are you going to go ahead and anticipate the landmines that your team will actually face so that they don't fall in a ditch? Are you a thinker, a doer, a pointer, or a dreamer? And there's so many other different profiles. Then you have to focus on the what and the when. What products are you developing through your vision? What innovations are being produced? And what services are you going to offer? Fundamentally, leadership is about service. And so you may ask, why no? Why do we need to focus on innovation with and for a purpose? And I will use healthcare as a use case, but it can be easily transposed to other sectors like business and education. And so one of the things I'd highlight for you is that, as you know, our healthcare system is in dire straits, that our system is in this unprecedented strain, and technology is moving fast, and there's a digital divide, and the global south, it represents 80% of the world's population, is really not getting where the rest of the world is, and innovation must actually be guided by purpose, and it's not about hype. And the why is that our healthcare system is faced with significant health disparities and a fragmented healthcare system, a growing aging population where we don't have enough resources to take care of the aging population, exorbitant costs, the healthcare work shortages and burnout, and issues around access are significant challenges. So we must innovate around challenges. But we can't just focus on pain points and challenges, because innovation must also be centered around opportunities. That technology offers us the opportunity to increase our decision-making and increase precision medicine, where we're giving the right drug and treatment to the right person at the right time, at the right dosage, in the right context.
We can use innovation and technology to improve patient engagement and then increase population health management. But I must offer that these big issues are complicated and complex, that they are like dialectics of each other. And one of the things I want to argue today is that oftentimes in healthcare and in just general business, that we always focus on the complicated and not the complex. The complicated is linear and mechanical and predictable. The complex is emergent and adaptive and relational, and sometimes it feels hard to find a real solution. But we can't conflate the two. Why? Because it's important to understand that in order for us to really see the true value in healthcare is that we must actually address the complicated, but also tackle the complex. This is important. Why? Because it demands trust and equity. It requires us to ensure that our identity in terms of who we are steeped in true values. And it focuses on behavior and lived experience, where we're not just actually creating technologies just for creating them, for creating them at all, but we're creating technologies that can fundamentally get to people who need it. I've always said this, that when I develop new technologies, I do not create technologies for the haves and the have-mores. I create technologies for the have-nots. Because the have-nots need the best technologies, the best ideas, the most sophisticated ideas. Yes, I understand from an implementation standpoint, it may be hard, but that's what we have to be committed to. So we have to be committed to this dialectic of solving the complicated and the complex. But then you may ask, well, AI can solve this, right, Azizi? Well, I would say yes to a certain extent. And my thesis is that AI and technology can solve the complicated, but it may not be able to solve the complex because humanity must supply wisdom, because wisdom governs intelligence, not the other way around. So one of the things that you're seeing now, and I was sharing this with my wife the other day, I'm like, when did these tech bros become philosophers? Everyone is talking about and wanting to hear what Zuckerberg and Elon and all of these guys have to say about how we should live our lives. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but how did we become that? They're obviously pushing an agenda that will allow us to be tethered to AI. But AI should not be driving it. That's when we have intelligence driving humanity. Instead, it should be the wisdom that's driving it, where we say, here are some big complex issues, big complicated issues that we're trying to solve. How do we do that? And so my view is that we need to create a world where intelligence serves wisdom, not wisdom serving intelligence. And I know this might be a little philosophical. I will get practical pretty soon. But it's really important that you have your core values. Again, as I shared with you, the why, the DNA of a vision is critical. Because if we're not very firm-footed folks, what's going to happen is that you're going to create a whole bunch of different technologies and solutions and say, you got to use this. And before you know it, you've lost your agency. And that's what we cannot afford, especially a university cannot do that. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you is that when you're looking at complicated versus complex issues, you can engineer them. You can establish clear and causal relationships. They're technical, they're solved through algorithms and optimization. And some of the big complicated issues that we try to tackle in healthcare focuses on scheduling, right? We know this is tough. Have you ever tried to call a physician and try, or a provider and get an appointment? It's like 6 months. Like that's ridiculous, right? It's just complex. And especially as a guy, I must admit, because I can feel my wife judging me right now. when we have to go to the doctor, I'm like, oh, it's okay. And, I'm Jamaican, so anything can be remedied through some tea or some herbal thing. No, you got to go to the doctor. So then when I call and they said, no, you have to wait 6 months. I'm like, you see, I told you. It's complicated. And we're trying to solve those issues. But then when it comes to complex things, these are nonlinear, emergent, as I've mentioned. But here are some complex issues that we're trying to take. We do this in a lot of our studies. Someone knows that they have hypertension and high blood pressure, and they know that their life depends on them, and they have a wonderful, beautiful family, but yet they don't take their antihypertensive medication. Is that a complicated issue or a complex issue? Why? Because there's so many different factors that might actually be causing that individual to not take their medication. And so here is it, what I'm trying to offer you is that you cannot use a tool that is primarily focused on solving complicated issues to solve a complex issue, right? And I think that's where I really want to drive home today. So you may ask, what does a wise and intelligent health system look like? It's one that focuses on individual level factors, clinical factors, community factors, and system level factors so that the healthcare system can be predictive, preventive, personalized, participatory, and purpose-driven. And it is my view that it is wisdom that will bring back humanity in healthcare. And so the question is that how are we going to do this? And I'm not saying that I am the paragon or the ideal or the face of this. I think we all have to do this, which is why I graciously, accepted this, invitation, because it's about building a community. It's about building a community of innovators. I usually ask this question. And I said, how many people, and you can do this, you can raise your hands. No, we won't judge you. If I were to ask you, how many of you believe that you are an innovator? Raise your hand. 4, 5. And this is what I see all the time. And the reason why people oftentimes might say I'm not an innovator is because we have this archetype of who an innovator is. You have to be very creative. You have to be able to produce and to build and the like. But all of you have done all of those things in your lives. It's my view that we should democratize innovation, where you don't feel as if that innovation is some just God-given talent, that we believe as an academic institution that it can be inculcated, it can be cultivated, because the mark of an innovator is not the innovator who's just creative, but the one who anticipates what's next. That's what we're called for. That's what academic institutions are called for. And really, I'm trying to tell us we should not shirk our responsibilities to Silicon Valley, nor to government or anything. We play a role. We have value. Truth and wisdom are critical, even more so today. So you may ask, why the University of Miami and why no? Well, for those of you, I'm going to do a little bit of humble brag about our great institution. Our institution is fantastic. We have some of the best facilities. Miami has some of the most innovation and tech venture funding that any other city has seen. Our previous mayor, he would always talk about the significant KPIs of Miami. Miami is hot. And I mean, not just physically hot. There's a lot going on here. In part, that's why I was one of the Northeastern folks that came here and drove up the real estate price. I apologize for that. Miami is hot. There's something going on. There's something in the air. But we have to seize the moment as an institution in terms of what role we're going to play. When you're talking about the particular innovation ecosystem today, that you primarily focus on the West Coast and the East Coast, right? Silicon Valley, San Francisco, and the Boston, New York corridor. And one of the things that I've always said, and my team has heard me say this, and I go on my soapbox a lot, is that all of these technologies and all these ecosystems are great places. But they only develop technologies for the global north. That the global north represents 20% of the world's population, and forget the 80% of the world like places where I hail from in Jamaica, who was just ravished by a Category 5 hurricane, and other places as well. And so I don't believe that the global north has a monopoly on innovation, right? Because I asked the question, if we were to go in a United Nations Council and ask, which of you are innovative countries, like United States obviously would, because we're the best in everything, right? I said tongue in cheek. And you would see other countries may actually say no, because we follow to the drumbeat of other nation states. And I actually believe, and the type of innovation that we're building is that we can actually be leaders here. And my vision is that Miami, particularly South Florida, and the University of Miami sits at the nexus of where the global north and the global south meet. We can actually create our third innovation ecosystem, but one that actually creates for the global south and the global north. And I believe that if you can create for the global south, then you can actually scale that anywhere. That is part of the larger vision. So then you may ask, Azizi, how are you doing this? Well, lots of sleepless nights and a fantastic team. And how we've gone about doing this is that we have created, I believe, a department of the future. We look more like a scale-up and a startup than actually an academic institution that, yes, and I'm not trying to begrudge my other colleagues where they have divisions and units, but we felt that that particular framework actually didn't lead to a lot of cross-pollination and innovation. Instead, we said, we're just going to disrupt academia from inside out and outside in. We're going to have verticals. So we have 5 core verticals: education, research, clinical operations, dissemination, and e-health, venture and service outreach policy, and ethics. And all these are core revenue streams for our department. The value proposition of education is we want to train the next generation of clinician, scientist, and practitioner, what we call clinician innovator, scientist innovator, and practitioner innovator, steeped in innovation as a core, as well as research. We want to tackle some core areas and the like. So how do we go about training the next generation of clinicians? Sorry about that, with the Mac and the PC coverage. So one of the things that we know as some of the key challenges in education is that only 25 or less than 25% of medical students globally receive any formal AI training. We do know that medical students and any scientist that, you know, that the rapid rate of innovation and just knowledge doubles every 73 days. You know, I went to a talk the other day, and you know, I heard someone gave us statistics, so I can't, you know, you can't fact check this. This is what someone said, that a journal paper is published every 26 seconds. So it's hard for people to keep up with the volume and the volume and the, you know, of data. So these are critical issues that they face. So here's what we've gone ahead to do. We have created several education projects and initiatives where we've created new novel curriculum, bioinformatics training, digital literacy, and micro-credentialing courses. And we believe that innovation operationalized really entails some core areas such as AI, literacy, bias detection, data governance, digital empathy, and the like. We believe that just like how when we went to college and everyone was talking about critical thinking, I am suggesting that education today is going to look so much different because our students have so much information at their fingertips that they don't know how to actually manage and process that volume of information. That while they can do deep research using some kind of large language model, but they are not actually learning and actually doing very deep understanding and knowledge. And so one of the things that we're trying to develop in our curriculum, working in partnership with the library, because I know the library is doing some amazing work, is to find ways in which we can actually adapt and adopt to the new way in which information and knowledge is acquired. That is critical to actually train the next generation. So here are some couple programs that we've been doing, and Dr. Gardner, this is where I can give you the updates right now. So we actually created a pathways program called the Doctor of the Future. We've teamed up with Amazon, we've teamed up with Google, we've teamed up with Microsoft and T-Mobile to train the next generation. So our students will come in and they'll learn generative AI, they'll have certificates, they'll have micro-credentialing. And so all sort of a sudden, our medical students and our students from our university not only will have a degree in their hand, but they will have what? Micro-credentials from and certificates from some of the top big tech companies. And we're actually trying to bring it not just for the students, but for our entire staff. Why? Because I believe that we need to actually cultivate an atmosphere of internal entrepreneurship. Internal entrepreneurship is one where, in order for me to get the best value and to reward someone, it's not just about did you do this thing or not and ensure that they execute the different processes. But we want to empower people where if they see a problem, easily they can use AI and technology to solve that issue. Yes, it might be spun out into a company, but if we reward people and incentivize people in their yearly evaluations to say, hey, what did you create with your team? Then that becomes internal entrepreneurship. That is where I believe, not just healthcare systems, but just organizations are going. We have the Milieu program. We have the AWS Academy. We have the Microsoft AI upskilling program as well that we're leading. Our team just received and just finished the AMA, the American Medical Association Innovation Award, where we're actually using virtual reality to teach our medical students soft skills, so to speak, engaging with patients and the like. And so these, and we have different micro-credentialing courses and badges and the like, and then experiential and applied learning. So we are actually working on 8 different key initiatives, educational initiatives, and this will allow them to really use AI to simplify learning. It will allow them to increase decision-making. It will allow them to harness big data so that it will lead to novel analyses so we can have more breakthrough science. It can help with administrative tasks. It will help with information processing, and it will help to accelerate discovery. But it's important to have a state-of-the-art library, which is why I applaud Kim and Dean Ekman and your team for doing amazing work. That the library has a place even more so today. That when you're bombarded with so much information, that the clearinghouse of information must be in the library. This is critical. Because the greatest skill today is information systems management. That is the biggest skill that any of our students or any of our staff need today. How to vet if this information is accurate or not, how to do kind of cross-pollinating types of work to do more deep research. This is important. And so that's kind of what we want. We want our students to learn ontologies in terms of how is it that particular words came about? What's the root words and the root clauses of different terms and phrases? That is important because when you do natural language process, which is an AI type of technology, that all rests on ontology. So we're not basically training our students to just click this and get an answer, but we're actually giving them a great appreciation as to how these tools are actually developed. That is the role of the library, and we welcome partnerships with the library to do that. One of the things that we've done as well is that when students come through our program, that they actually get an apprenticeship to one of these top organizations, because we're trying to train the next generation of clinician and scientists where they don't necessarily have to develop to develop a company or a new technology, but this is where the next chief medical officer at Apple or Google will be. This is what we're bringing to our university, and just by enriched by programming, but also steeped in apprenticeships. So I'll go through a little bit more quickly with regards to research. That our research is plagued by serious issues where it takes about 17 years to translate a new drug or a new intervention, and there's about 85% waste. We have created a new framework for informatics. I think we're the only department that has this framework. It's been vetted by some of our competitors like Vanderbilt, and they love this. Now, we believe that there are 4 fundamental informatic areas: clinical informatics, which is like electronic medical records. There's computational and biomedical informatics and digital biology, and population health informatics and digital health informatics. And we have led really big programs. Our team submitted one of the largest NIH grants in our school history at $312 million about 2 years ago, where we built an entire global alliance. You can check out the website there. Unfortunately, the government did not award any, but there are only 5 institutions, and I was very proud that the good old U was in there with the big, dogs like Yale and the like. But we were there. It was great, but we're building out this program incrementally. But we're also working on issues around digital biomarkers and decentralized trials. And I believe that, yes, medical devices are great, but I suggest, and one of the things that we're working on is that you can actually use sensors and digital technologies to be able to capture new markers that can actually pick up risk for disease way in advance. And we've done this work. Our so-called claim to fame is that we've worked with, and published really great work where we actually have used augmented reality to detect mild cognitive impairment and dementia 6 to 10 years before onset of symptoms. We've done this, we've published it in Nature and the like, and we're continuing to build up more programs around this area. Computational and digital biology is an area that our dean is really focused on, whether you're looking at different structures of DNA and different types of folding, because it's important for you to understand that when you create a molecule, that particular drug needs to bind on a protein. And oftentimes what happens is that the folding or the mutations in folding can cause a disease. And as a result, that particular natural biological process is not actually working in the way that it's intended. So one of the things that you can do now with AI, particularly AI-based drug discovery, is to model that. To model the ways in which or the proteins will misfold or mutate, and find ways in which you can actually allow those particular drugs to better bind. And we can have more precise, personalized medicine approaches in our healthcare. This is part of our larger vision, where we want to make the University of Miami one of the first AI factory universities. And essentially what this means is that we will have bench and basic scientists, but in addition to that, there will be a digital twin, a virtual lab. So you can run your mechanisms and you can run your reactions, but that will also inform what you have in your digital lab. And then both actual analyses are occurring at the same time, and it can actually speed innovation. And we saw this just a year ago, and even just this year, that the Nobel Prize winners in physics actually use AlphaFold to be able to sequence all the different proteins that can lead to novel discovery. We are actually creating the first AI factory, digital AI factory here at the university through our partnership with a Silicon Valley company called Transcriptor Bio to be able to deliver on this. So our students want to do some really cool technologies and innovations, but may not have the lab infrastructure to do that. You can do that in this virtual environment, but also we want to use this as an opportunity to empower our scientists to do more breakthrough discovery type of work. And particularly this can speed discovery, 10 to 50 times and the like, and it can lead to all different types of new IP and next generation scientists. We've done some good work in decentralized trials. My colleague, Dr. Jordan Jean-Louis, he and I published a paper in Science where we were one of the first academic schools to be able to create a decentralized trial that is inclusive of all. So we primarily focus on African Americans as well as Latinos, particularly so-called hard to reach communities. And what we have shown by the creation of different forms of remote health monitoring solutions like the mailbox, that we have a compliance rate of about 89% of people using and accepting remote health monitoring solution. Contrasting that to the gold standard, which is at best 50%. because we have a human in the loop guiding people to actually get and to use remote health monitoring solutions. So essentially what this looks like is we send to people's homes a really nice, elegant box. There are like 2 watches, there's a smart ring, there's a blood pressure monitor, there's a smart scale, and they have to unbox it, and we monitor them for about 7 days, 24 hours. And from there, we're able to capture all different types of markers, because that will allow us to measure the person from head to toe over a longitudinal period of time. And from there, we have a very bold vision to create the digital twin of an individual. The digital twin is like a biological algorithm of this individual, whereby this will unleash precision medicine to a point where before you get sick, we can predict before you get sick. And we can actually intervene before that. These are some of the real things that are happening here at our university, folks. And because of this, our team won the T-Mobile and Malcolm Gladwell Tipping Point Award. That was extremely cool because they saw the value of creating a remote health monitoring solution. We've done great work in terms of Harmony Alliance, which I will point you to so you can look at that. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is that we are looking at the fact that we want to create not just a remote health monitoring solution in the home, but then we can bring it to smart cities as well. Because we'll monitor the individual, nest that infrastructure in the smart home, and then nest that as well into smart cities. And that is what we're trying to do. I'll just go over quickly in terms of what we're doing in clinical care. So we know that we are ravished by a high prevalence of chronic health conditions. It's estimated that about 60% of the US population has some chronic health condition. And we have some very serious healthcare issues and public health issues. Unfortunately, our healthcare system is unable to manage that wide volume and burden. Oftentimes people are lost to care through these transitions, and it costs us almost $1 trillion. And AI can fix this. It can fix it through fewer readmissions, and it can solve diagnostic errors and increase adherence and the like. These are complicated issues. And how we've gone about doing this, we've done our remote patient monitoring. We have put programs in place for decentralized care. We have a very robust digital literacy program because many of you might say, well, can this actually work in so-called communities where that don't have, a technology? And we've partnered with T-Mobile. So all of our mailboxes, you don't have to have a cell phone. We've had partnerships with T-Mobile. We have a partnership with T-Mobile where we provide them an iPhone and we provide them a MiFi so that we will not turn anyone away. We don't want to limit that. And that's what our healthcare system can be. We also had a program that we just concluded and we're continuing to do is a very robust femtech program where we know that maternal mental health is very, very serious, particularly among Black and Brown communities, particularly Black and Brown women, where they don't have access to care. So here's what we did. We developed my colleague and I, Dr. Judy Blanc, we developed a virtual reality program to provide that, to increase access to mental health care during perinatal. And we've seen significant successes. And we're going to transpose that to the NICU as well. So we're doing some incredible work. When it comes to venture, the other vertical, it is said about 3% of discoveries that are patent actually develop successfully into a company. 5 to 10% of them can scale. So there is a very slow tech transfer. And so how do we unleash that? Well, we have this model called spinning things out, two-way innovation, spinning things out, spinning things in. Here's what we do at the Media and Innovation Lab. We say to any company and to any particular individual here, if you have a great idea, we will help to accelerate that. And there's some other groups at our university who are doing this work as well. But we've done some really excellent work bringing in some of the best companies so that for physicians, for providers, or anyone who wants to use these types of technologies, that they can use it. So we become that front door so that you're not overwhelmed by that. So we have this white glove industry engagement and we have different partnerships as well. And so these are some of the things. But one of the things that we learned when we rolled out this venture program, we realized that perhaps our community just by your own admission, didn't see themselves as innovators. So here's what we did as a department and as a group. We partnered with Amazon and we led an entire year of innovation transformation. We called it Project Inspire. And I kid you not, this was one of the best experiences we've ever had. Over an entire year, we had 85 faculty, staff, and students come here on a Saturday in the morning to learn how to innovate and to learn principles around innovation. And on top of that, we led an innovation research day with Amazon at our Coral Gables campus, and we had over 300 people. These are the real successes that we have been able to demonstrate thus far. And we've created several different programs like our FemTech program, which, by the way, the FemTech program that we've created that focuses on women's health, which is both educational and research and venture, is the first academic FemTech program in the world. The godmother of FemTech has applauded us to say the University of Miami is doing some great work. Why is this important? Because being raised by 5 women and having 2 wonderful women and others in my life, that we recognize, unfortunately, that when we think of medicine, that default is a white male, and that women's bodies are seen as unknowns. And so being convicted by that, we recognize that we need to find better ways to understand how women's bodies are, because they are unique and they're wonderful. But unfortunately, we're not serving them. And so some programs that we've created and just done some excellent work in this space, and I'll close pretty soon. Our 5th vertical focuses on service outreach, policy, and ethics. And this is a very near and dear vertical because I think this restores the most sacrosanct virtue that we have, in that of service. That we have to realize that if you create the best technologies, that oftentimes these technologies were not created for the average person in mind. And that's wrong. And so what we are doing on a program is that we've led several different programs to do this around our digital literacy program, our workforce pipeline, where we go to high schoolers and we said, hey, it's okay. You can be an engineer, you can be an innovator, and we train them in that. And we have Global South initiatives. We're about to launch several programs in Jamaica and in Latin America, trying to build up the innovation ecosystem of those places. But we also focus on policy and governance and ethics. And we're obviously doing that through our Harmony Alliance initiative. We have over 200 different companies, over 40 different countries represented in this global alliance. We believe that in order for us to tackle the real issues around aging, it must be a global effort. It can't just be a North American effort. And so we've worked with different companies to be able to help low to middle income countries to build up their infrastructure, to provide scans so that they can do brain imaging, and to provide the technologies and to provide telecommunications technology around broadband so that they can actually create ecosystems that would allow them to capture real data on their populations. But I'll end in this way, that while I shared with you that the vertical system of ensuring and reimagining education and reimagining research and reimagining clinical care and reimagining venture and reimagining service and outreach, that we should not ignore the fact that this is a moment for real leadership. That the only way this is possible is through real, bold, courageous leadership. And so I have an ABCD model. And I ask you to reflect in terms of which one of these you are and to identify the people who you work with in terms of who they are. I believe that in any organization, you need architects. These are the people who design things. Then you need bridgers. These are individuals who may not have any formal authority, but they're the people who are they're just well networked, right? They always connect the dots with people. That's so critical to really spur a culture of innovation. And then you need the catalyst. The people who just put their fairy dust and just start that chain reaction, getting things going and going and going for purpose. But you also need disseminators, people who can implement these different types of solutions. But you also need people, and you need to have a robust process. And you need to have the platform in which people feel as if that they can innovate with and for a purpose. And you need to have policies that reward and incentivize people to be different, to be disruptive, to ensure that any innovation is important, even though it might not be ready or it might be half-baked, but it's ready, that it will be acknowledged. And I believe that we have a Miami moment, that I believe that Miami can lead the global and local innovation ecosystem. Because Miami is the gateway to the global south. We don't need to be like the coasts. We don't need to be like Stanford. We don't need to be MIT or Harvard. There's value in who we are. There's so much people in the global south to serve. And that's where I can see our true value. Because ultimately, innovation with a purpose is really the North Star, guiding every breakthrough. And I believe that Miami is on the cusp of fulfilling that dream. Because, as my good friend Bill Rody, who used to lead Viacom, always says, that we can do good through innovation, because doing good is always good for business. I'm a man of deep faith. And the things that you've heard is guided by my intellect, but my heart. I see the University of Miami very differently. While some may see it as this engine of intellect, and as it is, I believe our true calling is who we are with purpose. Kim, I loved how you started today, because it really showed us that we are on hallowed ground. We are on hallowed ground. The university sits, particularly the medical school, sits in one of the most historical communities in our country, Overtown, one of the first African-American communities. I tell our team this all the time. People don't see us as a healthcare system. They see us as a beacon of hope. When we walk through the streets of Overtown, there are kids looking at us and saying, someone looking like me can occupy a platform like this. We are more than just a health system. We're more than just a school. And so I ask you that this reimagined way of looking at our academic institution as a place of innovation with and for a purpose allows us to be a wiser organization. Still rooted in data and analytics, but makes us a smart system. It makes us more compassionate, where we're serving and we're caring for the whole human being. It allows us to be humble, something that is not demonstrated in our leaders today. There's value in humility, as it allows us to create a learning system, and it keeps us accountable. But lastly, it allows us to be more just. It allows us to be fair, transparent, and inclusive. Because you know what? My view is justice is love in action. And my faith guides me to love everyone. And so I am guided and rooted that in order for me to show my love, that we need to create a more just system. Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate it.
We do have time for a few questions. If anyone in the audience has a question, please raise your hand. We have a runner who will bring you a microphone. Yes. Please come back and join me.
I do not bite. I know I said a lot, and it may feel a little bit like a whiplash, so I apologize. But I am voluminous with my talks because I am very grateful to have an amazing team that does a lot. And so I want to showcase and to reflect all the great work. We do work like a startup, and our team can say this. I know they probably don't like this about me, but we work really hard, as everyone does. But that's more than happy to talk about anything off topic. Some of you might be concerned about, why is it that these folks are so focused on making everyone use AI? I mean, you could get the Uncle Bunker story from me.
Yes, you could. Are there any questions in chat? We do have a question.
Perfect.
Carol. Wait one moment, please, and that way the people on Zoom will be able to hear also.
Oh, I found it very interesting, but I have been involved on the wrong side of managed care. And I wonder how much managed care is taking this into account.
It's an excellent question, and thanks again for your leadership and support of our institution again, and for your service. I think managed care is taking this into consideration, particularly the AI components of it. Obviously, they're trying to increase operational efficiencies. They're trying to find ways in which we can remove the pain points and the bottlenecks in our healthcare system. But I agree with you that there needs to be a macro view where it is rooted in purposeful innovation, where we're not just creating technologies. One of the things that I probably can't say too much about, but I'm working very closely with the Global Chief Medical Officer of Microsoft on some of these issues, because as I was talking to Dr. Gardner, that in light of, and I'm going to be apolitical because I know where I am at, I'm in the great state of Florida, that unfortunately there are a lot of people who will lose coverage. And I'm a little bit conflicted, because when you read, MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, that there are some great elements, but in terms of how it will be executed like managed care, I think that's where it's still a little unclear for us. I'm working with some of the leaders from big tech to find ways in which we can create technology infrastructure to connect the dots. For example, someone who is seen at a federal qualified health center or a community hospital, which serves over 94% of the healthcare demands, what happens when they have to go to a specialist or they have to come to our great institution here at the university at UHealth? How is that connected? And I think those are some of the issues. Some of the donut holes in Medicare as well, Part A, B, D, those are some issues that technology can potentially, address as well. But it's not just trying to solve the issue with, kind of old ingredients. It's more so about how is it that we can learn best practices while at the same time find ways in which we can create new ingredients. So for example, in terms of mental health and behavioral health, yes, I'm not saying I'm against kind of psychiatric medications, but there are some people who would probably benefit or want a digital solution to tackle their issues around anxiety and depression. And so those are some of the things that if we, through managed care, make some of those offerings available, reimbursable, then people will have that option, and then we'll be able to use precision medicine to see what intervention works for whom, what is the sequence of it. Maybe someone will benefit using, psychiatric medication, while at the same time using some kind of digital therapeutic. So, I know it's kind of I want to give you a wholesome answer, but that was an excellent, question. And we are working extremely hard, on it. The business model, I think, is where it's the greatest challenge.
And we're trying to work with the economists to see how is it that we can, reward things different. If you do fee for service, or do you do kind of value-based care? And, I have friends out at Kaiser Permanente that have shown some good, early signs of success. But it's challenging, where not every health system has this value-based care. And value-based care is where they give you a pot of money, the health system, to take care of a cohort of individuals. And so it behooves that particular health system to ensure that you put all your necessary resources to take care of that cohort of patients, as opposed to fee for service, whereby every time you go to the health system, you're being charged, you're being charged, you're being charged. And I think that is a huge business model conundrum that we still have to tackle. But I think if we have, kinds of digital solutions, and by digital doesn't mean just something on your phone, but having a well-integrated technology ecosystem where we can monitor how they comparatively operate, then we can make the business case that there needs to be reimbursement and investment in certain areas. Thank you so much for your question. Yes.
Hi, thank you. Very, very nice talk. So my question is along those lines, as develops all the AI technology with AWS, et cetera, Google, and other universities are doing the same thing with their big, large health system. What do you think the timeline is moving this into the community, into more rural areas, with using AI for a variety of the areas that you brought up?
The timeline is no. My work focuses on a lot of urban-rural divide. And so, one of my colleagues, we smiled when you asked that question, because we were just having a conversation about that. And I don't want to reveal too much because we're still working on the fine details of it. But the Harmony Alliance is a real ambitious, expansive project that really focuses not just on the globe, but also here in the United States. Because there is no difference between Hendrick County and where I came from in Jamaica, and so we're really trying to find areas around that. This is why we've strategically partnered with telecommunication companies like T-Mobile, who, by the way, just acquired US Cellular, which is the largest rural provider of telecommunications, because we realize that you need the entire ecosystem, because it doesn't make any sense you say that you're going to have a digital solution or telemedicine if the necessary broadband infrastructure is not there. And so we're actively working on building up such programs.
So do you think they will embrace this? Because this is very different type of technology for those individuals in these rural areas.
Absolutely. And again, as I said, I'm not political, I'm a patriot. And so this is where that, I believe, $50 billion for the rural investment through MAHA, a lot of folks are looking at this. And one particular company that I'm very close with, called Homeward, they focus primarily in rural areas. And I know those CEOs very well. They ran a company called Lavongo, which was bought by Teladoc, which some of you might know. So I know all of those folks. They have moved on and created another company called Transcarent, and then moved on to create this company called Homeward. So there are some active, really good things going on. And so this is what we are a part of as well. But I recognize the importance of that, we should not leave anyone behind. But we're looking at it macroscopically, because you can't offer the solution if the infrastructure isn't there. And so these are some of the things that we're actively working on. So we're not just a healthcare group. We do everything, engineering and policy and the like. So thank you for your question.
Unfortunately, we can't take any more questions now. We've kind of reached it. No,
Thank you
I
very much.
want you to stay here.
Oh,
I want you to stay here. We do for your engaging.
Oh, wow.
I would like to give you this gift.
Oh, wow.
It is engraved. It's the vase that we have engraved for the featured speaker. It says the day and I'm going to keep it and have it
Okay, no.
delivered
Yeah, no problem, because
to your office.
she did not trust me. I look like I have like unsafe and unsteady hands. That I agree with you.
We will have it delivered to your office.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
We appreciate it.
Can I?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now I'm scared I'm gonna drop it.
We'll pull it together.
Just-
Okay. Where do you want me to hold? Thank you. I felt like I just want to call like a sports.
Yeah. Should feel like you want
Yes.
an awesome presentation.
I'm very humbled. Thank you so much.
Now I would like to welcome Dean and University Librarian Charles Ekman to the stage for a special presentation.
Thank you, Kim, and thanks again to our wonderful speaker. Really inspirational presentation. In celebration of the 100th anniversary of the University of Miami and its libraries, it's my great honor to present the University Library Centennial Medal. This medal represents the highest distinction bestowed by the libraries and is awarded to individuals and organizations whose advocacy, outreach, and philanthropy have made a transformative impact on the library's growth and enduring mission. Ruth Gross established a substantial endowment for the Calder Library in memory of her husband, Ralph H. Gross. This generous gift was intended to support an ongoing lecture series celebrating health sciences knowledge and its real-world impact. Distinguished speakers are invited to make a presentation in lay language to ensure that it is accessible to a broad audience. We just saw a master class in what the impact of such a gift can be in terms of bringing new knowledge to an entire group of people who are looking for inspiration for the future in a very complex world. So thanks again to our speaker. While Ralph and Ruth Gross are no longer with us, their legacy continues to inspire all who benefit from the resources and opportunities made possible through Ruth's gift. Kim and I would now like to invite Patricia Gross Bergman and Carol Gross Clarkson, the daughters of Ralph and Ruth, to join us on the stage to receive the library's Centennial Medal on behalf of their parents.
That concludes our lecture. Please stay around and join us for the reception outside.